Parsha Shmos ends on a real low note. Kodesh Baruch Hu sent Moshe Rabbeinu to Paro to ask that he free the Jews. Paro responded by intensifying the slavery of the Jewish people. They would no longer be given straw with which to build bricks. The Jews were so depressed by this, they complained to their taskmasters. The Shotrim, the officers of the Jewish people, complained to Moshe. And even Moshe complained to Hashem, Lama hariosa le'amazeh, lama zeh shlachtani. Why have you done badly to the Jewish people? Why did you send me? Hashem responds to Moshe, Tatir asher aseh leFaro. Now you'll see what I'm going to do. We're now expecting HaKadosh Baruch Hu to drop the glove, so to speak, and to start punishing the Egyptians. But instead, Parshat Ve'era begins with Hashem resending Moshe to the Jewish people again, telling them about the promises for the future. And the obvious question is, why does Hashem do this? Why not go right to the Makos? Why does Hashem send Moshe back to the Jewish people? I think the answer is very simple and very important. In order for the Jews to leave Mitzrayim, they have to show faith. They have to stand with Moshe. They had lost their faith, and Hashem tried to restore it to them. It's interesting to see how Hashem tries to restore this faith. He presents here the Arba Lashonot of Geula, the 4 phrases of redemption, not in Parshat Shmot, when he first speaks about the redemption, but only here in Parshat Ve'era. These phrases, these languages, were meant to breathe inspiration into the Jewish people after they had lost it. What do these languages add to what Hashem had already presented? If you take a close look at the languages, you see that they're not just about being freed from Egypt. They're about forming a relationship with Hashem. V'lakachti etchem li la'am. And they're also about returning to Israel, being part of realizing our past and our destiny. Hashem begins by talking about how he had given the Avod, the land of Israel. And now he describes how the Jewish people will be brought back there. Hashem is trying to help the Jewish people through their difficult moment, through their crisis of faith, by revealing to them the vision for the future, by showing them that it's not just about an emancipation, liberation. It's about a connection with Hashem and about returning to the land of the Avot. He hopes to give them this long-term vision that will inspire them in the present. That's why it's so interesting to see what the Torah tells us happened when Moshe went and brought this message to the Jewish people. In Pasuk Tet, the end of Rishon, the Torah writes, V'lo shamu el Moshe, the Jewish people couldn't hear what Moshe was saying. They were not able to be inspired. Sadly, Yetziat Mitzrayim took a different path because of this. Instead of going right away to Makat Bechorot and the Jews being freed, all the Makot were needed, not to vanquish the Egyptians, but to inspire the Jewish people. Yetziat Mitzrayim took a detour because the Jewish people were not yet ready. Why weren't they ready? What can we learn from this about how we ourselves can find faith in difficult times? The Torah uses 2 phrases to describe why they could not hear Moshe. It says, Mikotzer Ruach u'me'avodah kasha. Short-spiritedness and the difficulty of their work. Let's start with the second phrase. Sometimes we're so busy working, even on important things, that we don't have the capacity, the mindfulness to think long-term about the vision for our lives. In fact, this was Paro's plan. He said, Tichbad ha'avodah. Let's intensify the work of the people so they won't have time to think about emancipation, religion, bigger goals. Sometimes we're so busy living life that we don't have the time or headspace to think about what our goals in our lives are. This is such an important point. The Mesilat Yesharim speaks about it based on the Tichbad Avodah Pasuk in the end of Shmot. And he says, sometimes we could even be working on Avodat Hashem. We're so busy learning and davening that we don't have the time to think about other things. And both in Yeshiva and for sure after Yeshiva, we get so busy with the business of living life that sadly we often don't have times to think about the long-term mission that we're on. The first phrase, Kotzer Ruach, is also very important. What Hashem was banking on and aiming to inspire was that people could have vision beyond the moment. Sometimes we're short-spirited, short-sighted. We don't see beyond the moment. We make the biggest mistakes in our lives when we are focused on what we're feeling at the moment. When Yaakov says to Esav, the proposal to sell the Bechorah, he says, Michra chayom et Bechoratcha li. Why chayom? The Mefarshim explain, Yaakov was hinting to Esav why he didn't deserve the Bechorah rights. He was only focused on today, the food he was eating, the thoughts he was having. He couldn't think about where does all of it lead, what's going to be tomorrow. We make our biggest mistakes when we get caught in the moment. Just to share a very powerful story, 1936, the Peel Commission suggested partitioning the land of Israel. Ben Gurion was torn about whether to accept the proposal. He turned to a number of people to ask their advice. One of them was Yitzchak Tebenk, who was the head of the kibbutz movement, a very well-respected thinker. Tebenkin said to Ben Gurion, I need to ask other people their opinion. Ben Gurion was shocked. Who was he going to ask? The next day, Tebenkin came back and he said, don't accept partition. Ben Gurion asked him, okay, who did you ask? Tebenkin said, I asked my grandfather and my grandson, neither of whom were alive. Tebenkin understood that when we make a decision, we have to think about what does it mean for the past of Jewish history? What does it mean for the future of the Jewish people? We would probably make much better decisions today as a people if we had people who thought that way. And in our own lives, we can be inspired by anticipating the future if we think about the future and can see beyond the moment. Let's learn from the lesson, the beginning of Parshat Ve'era, to be able to be inspired by our vision for the future. Use our past to inspire our faith in it. Not live in the moment, not be short-spirited, but be able to be inspired by Hashem and Avodas Hashem because we can see the long term.